The baby orangutan stared at his mom, eye to eye, for 5 minutes, then Zookeeper realized something shocking. The air within the Bornean sanctuary's intensive care unit did not carry the life-giving perfume of the surrounding jungle. There was no scent of damp earth, blooming orchids, or the sweet fermenting musk of fallen durian. Instead, the atmosphere was a sterile vacuum, thick with the acidic scent of pain, the sharp sting of rubbing alcohol, and the heavy metallic ozone of humming medical monitors. Under the dim, amber glow of the nursery lights, a scene was unfolding that defied every known clinical protocol of primate behavior. Booty, a tiny infant orangutan with sunset-colored fur that shimmered like dying embers against the white sheets of his incubator, was not sleeping. He was not crying for the comfort of a bottle or the warmth of a blanket. Instead, he sat with a terrifying, prehistoric stillness, his small, leathery palms pressed flat against the reinforced glass. His gaze was locked, unblinking and absolute, onto the weary, sunken eyes of his mother, Sira, who lay dying just inches away on the other side of the barrier. For 5 agonizing minutes, the world outside, the rhythmic trilling of cicadas, and the heavy, humid promise of rain tapping against the roof, vanished. There was only an unspoken bridge of light passing between the fading matriarch and her son. It was a stare that felt less like an observation and more like a final, desperate download of a soul, a silent transfer of an entire lineage's wisdom before the candle flickered out. Before we uncover the heart-stopping truth that the zookeepers realized during those 5 minutes, a revelation that would challenge everything we know about animal consciousness, I want to warmly invite you to join our global family of wildlife guardians. If these stories of the profound, hidden emotions of the natural world touch your spirit, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. We are deeply honored to have you with us in this moment of reflection. We would also love to truly connect with you. Where in this big, beautiful world are you watching from right now? What is the weather like outside your window? And what time is it there as you share this vigil with us? Your presence in the comments is the heartbeat that keeps these stories breathing. To understand the crushing weight of this 5-minute stare, one must understand the language of the heart that had defined Sira and Booty's bond long before the shadows grew long. Sira was a survivor of the scorched earth, rescued years ago from a fragment of forest where the air had smelled only of smoke and diesel. When Booty was born, he became her living redemption. The sanctuary had once smelled of fresh eucalyptus and sun-warmed straw during their golden days together. Sira would tuck Booty into the deep, soft hollow of her chest, their synchronized breathing creating a rhythmic engine of peace that seemed to stabilize the energy of the entire enclosure. There was a deep, ancient trust between Sira and her lead keeper, Elena. A simple tilt of Sira's head could communicate more than 1,000 pages of clinical charts. But as the monsoon rains began to lash against the sanctuary glass with the force of lead pellets, the golden light began to curdle. Sira had contracted a rare, aggressive infection that turned her once vibrant, cinnamon fur dull and matted. The air around her began to carry the sharp, bitter musk of a body in retreat. And as her strength failed, the team was forced to move Booty into an incubator to prevent the spread of the pathogen. The deterioration of Sira's condition was swifter than any expert had predicted. Dr. Eris, the lead veterinarian, stood in the shadows of the unit, his heart a leaden weight in his chest as he watched the monitors. Sira's oxygen levels were plummeting, her heartbeat a jagged, failing staccato on the glowing screen. The room was filled with a thick mixture of stale coffee, human sweat, and the mounting, suffocating grief of a team about to lose their matriarch. Booty, usually a rambunctious infant who thrived on touch, had fallen into an unnatural, ghostly quiet. He had crawled to the very edge of the glass, his tiny body trembling with a frequency that Elena had never witnessed in a primate. As the clock ticked, the 5-minute vigil began. The keepers stood frozen, their breath held in their throats. They expected Booty to beat against the glass, to let out the primal, heart-rending shriek of an abandoned child. Instead, he remained a statue of orange silk. The sensory focus of the room shifted. The smell of medicine seemed to fade, replaced by a strange floral sweetness that shouldn't have been there, the scent of a transition. Then came the reveal, the shocking truth that shattered the team's clinical understanding of the great apes. As the 5th minute reached its climax, Sira let out a long, final, shuddering exhale that smelled of ozone and the end of a long journey. Her heart monitor flatlined into a haunting, singular drone that pierced the silence like a needle. But Booty did not flinch. He did not pull away. Instead, he raised his second hand and pressed it against the glass, aligning his tiny fingers perfectly with where Sira's limp hand lay on the cooling metal table. It was then that Elena realized something that made her knees weak. Booty wasn't just watching his mother pass. He was hosting her. The shocking truth was that Booty had entered a state of profound neural mirroring, so intense that he was physically processing her final sensory experiences. His brain activity, captured by the observation sensors, had spiked at the exact microsecond her heart stopped. The zookeeper realized with a jolt of pure electricity that the infant was intentionally remaining silent to act as a biological anchor, a living vessel for her final moments of consciousness. He was holding the door open so she wouldn't have to walk through the dark alone. The resolution was a slow, tear-stained journey back from the edge of the abyss. In the hours following Sira's passing, the sanctuary was draped in a silence that smelled of wet earth and ancient loss. The healing process began not with medicine, but with the first moment of physical reconnection. Elena, knowing that Booty was at risk of giving up his own will to live after such an intense emotional transfer, broke every protocol in the manual. She took the tiny infant from the incubator and placed him directly onto Sira's cooling chest for one final physical goodbye. The release of tension was visceral and immediate. Booty let out a single, heart-wrenching sob, a sound like a snapped branch in a winter forest, and buried his face in her sunset-colored fur. This was the moment the synchronized breathing finally broke, allowing Booty to return to his own rhythm, his own life. The team watched through blurred eyes as the infant's skin lost its gray, shock-induced pallor and returned to a healthy, vibrant pink. He had completed his task as the witness. He had walked her to the clearing, and now he was finally ready to return to the world of the living. The philosophical legacy of Booty's 5-minute stare forces us to confront the reality of animal empathy and the sixth sense of love. It teaches us that the bridge between species is not built of spoken language or human logic, but of the raw, unvarnished frequency of the soul. We often treat the creatures of the forest as biological machines driven purely by the instinct to eat and survive, but Booty showed us a level of cognitive and emotional complexity that rivals, and perhaps exceeds, our own. He demonstrated that love is a form of supreme intelligence, a way of knowing that transcends the physical body and the limitations of a glass barrier. It suggests that in the animal kingdom, death is not always a lonely departure, but a shared transition facilitated by the profound compassion of those who stay behind. The story of the 5-minute stare remains a sacred memory among the keepers, a reminder that the language of the heart is the only one that truly matters when the lights of the world begin to dim. Today, Booty is a thriving toddler, his sunset-colored fur a bright flag of resilience as he swings through the high ropes of the sanctuary. He still carries a certain gravity in his gaze, a depth that seems to look through people rather than at them, as if he is still attuned to a frequency the rest of us have forgotten. He eats his fruit with a slow, deliberate grace, and when the monsoon rains fall, he sits by the window and watches the mist with a calm that anchors the younger orphans. The healing was a collective effort, a synchronized breathing of a team that learned more about life from an infant orangutan than they ever did from a textbook. Sira is gone. Her physical form returned to the Bornean soil, but her essence is woven into the very fabric of Booty's strength. He is the guardian of her memory, a living testament to the fact that no bond is ever truly broken if there is someone brave enough to stay and watch. As we leave Booty in the canopy, surrounded by the scent of fresh rain and the promise of a new dawn, we are reminded that even the smallest heart can carry the weight of a giant. If this story of the silent, shocking bond between a mother and her son has moved you, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Your support is what allows us to keep documenting these miracles of the wild and sharing the language of the heart with the world. We have one final question for you. Have you ever looked into the eyes of an animal and felt a connection so deep it felt like they were holding a mirror up to your very soul? Tell us your story in the comments below. We read every single one, and they remind us why we do this work. Thank you for being a witness to Booty's journey today, and until our next story unfolds, remember to hold the ones you love a little closer, and never underestimate the power of a silent gaze.